Jace Hughes is the lone pilot of the spaceship Renegade Star. He's known as a renegade, a mercenary hired for odd jobs throughout the star system. However, when a heavy debt forces him to accept the suspicious transport job, he uncovers a band of explorers and scientists searching for an ancient secret long since thought of as myth. Now being hunted by his debtor and suspected by the galactic government of multiple crimes, Jace has to work with the scientists and escape, while protecting them and a little girl who has a connection to a set of mysterious relics from an ancient civilization. Renegade Star is the first in a series by author J.N. Chaney and came out in 2017. I picked it up because I saw an ad for it on Facebook, and between this book and Fierce Kingdom, which I bought for similar reasons, I will no longer rely on ads when buying books. So I'm just gonna come right out and say it, this book is like some off-brand fanfiction of Firefly. And it's not just because the main character is a morally great outlaw, constantly strapped for cash, who hops between RimWorlds so he can avoid the centralized galactic government because he doesn't like the way they do things. As part of the scientists he picks up, he partners with a woman with a protective nature towards her friends, kicks ass in a fight, and acts like the second in command. And also, they travel with a little girl with unexplained powers that will no doubt lead to great adventure and discovery in a future episode. But there are elements that don't appear in Firefly as well. Jace has an onboard AI program with a built-in personality. Its personality is that it's British. Alright, maybe I'm being a little unfair. The story is unique enough that it stands as its own property. The problem is that the story is rushed and not very well developed. There are some good elements to be found, like Jace's relationship with the fence who buys his illicit goods, and I did kinda like the ship, but those were two small things in a sea of mediocrity. The other characters and their relationships were just dull, though the ninja nun stood out a little. And yes, I am calling a book with a ninja nun dull. One positive is that Jace is kind of a badass. He's described as this experienced renegade, someone who does difficult, reckless jobs all across the galaxy, and does them well. And the way he talks proves that he knows what he's doing. But his dialogue with others, especially his AI, is sometimes wooden and stiff. I can't really invest myself in a character if he comes off as robotic. Perhaps the biggest reason I couldn't invest in the story is because there was no permanent sense of danger. Even though Jace was cautious and didn't play around with his enemies recklessly, the stakes never felt very high. Danger was always easily defeated or avoided entirely. There was really only one time in the end where I was worried for anyone during an action scene, and I was more worried about the side characters than Jace. I mean, obviously since this is like book 1 out of 8, they're not going to kill the protagonist in the first book. But still, he was so battle-hardened that even if the side characters did die, it wouldn't affect him much. The author tried to get a little creative through the universe by including slip space. It's your basic wormhole tech where ships fly to distant planets in only a few days or maybe a few hours. But the book was pretty specific in that the slip space here was more like a roadway of branching tunnels. And apparently they existed in stasis, so much so that Jace's AI could see when enemy ships were on approach, almost like it was looking through a telescope. Maybe it was supposed to be like opening a few portholes within the universe, but I think it can be best described by resurrecting a very dead meme.
It's a series of tubes.
But I could forgive most of that if it weren't for all the typos. While I can forgive a mistake or two, even in a high-grade professional book, this book had a misspelled word or missing punctuation every few chapters. It really degraded the quality for me. While the prose wasn't terribly written, I found it more uninteresting than bad. The quality overall and the carelessness shown made the whole thing feel like a really good first draft or a decent second draft. And then I read the author's notes at the end of the book. Chaney said that his intent was to write each book in the Renegade Star series in only 4 to 6 weeks each. An admirable, though lofty, goal. He'd do much better taking his time than not rushing his books. Overall, this book is really meh. Some people might like it, but I'm not one of them. The book is a rush job and it shows. There is some potential that shines through now and then in small doses, but it's not enough to make the series worth the effort. Casual sci-fi fans might like the book, especially since the author lists Trigun and Cowboy Bebop as inspirations, but I don't think I'll be returning to the series myself. So, have you read the book? What did you think? If not, do you want to read it now? Whatever your thoughts, comment below and stay tuned for more.